a few tips for newer sculptors out there as far as not necessarily doing a base of clay, because it's pretty simple. You know, I've got a foam head underneath here, and you want to cover the whole head. And you know, if it's a piece for yourself, you want to take your facial dimensions and reproduce them as close as you can get, if not a little bit bigger. A little oversized is always better than undersized, onto your form. Now it's important to get the whole thing covered, that way your clay, because if I was to just take like a wooden knife and cut away here, I could just pop that off, because clay does not really stick to foam that well, which what makes these perfect, because once you're done, you know, you pull off your jacket mold and all that, and you can just peel it right off, and it's not an effort whatsoever. But when you're starting with something like this, it's you know, if you've got a big project, you know, if it's something involved, like I've got a piece back here. This is my Guyver 1 that I haven't completely finished yet. A few little touch-ups, size changes that I had to do just to make sure the helmet would actually fit. When you're getting to some final stages like this, then yeah, you want to do a lot of smoothing out, a lot of detail work, which is handy to have spray bottle of water next to you, just so you can actually spray an entire surface. I used to use a little bowl of water with so I can dip my fingers in, but this is far easier. It mists the area, so not a whole lot of water, but just enough. So before you go on smoothing something like this, when you're building up, it's actually takes less time, I've found, to have an area relatively smooth before you start applying more clay. Because if you're applying clay like uneven surface over top of uneven surface and so on and so forth, it's just a real pain to have to get everything smoothed out again, because, well, you're working on 2 or 3 layers of uneven clay. So there is going to be some pockets underneath that, as you press, they'll get filled up, but you'll still have to go over on the layer that you're actually working on to add more clay to compensate for the layers underneath that you didn't do. So you're better off doing it right underneath, and in the end you'll have less problems. It may sound like roughly the same amount of time, but trust me, it's not. So, like, when I go to smooth something like this, anything that's big and open that you can actually work with, you know, I'll have one hand supporting the actual model, and I'll be using the bottom part of my hand. For the most part, I'll use the heel where the thumb connects, and basically I'll be supporting the model with whichever hand that you're not using to smooth out the clay, and basically all I'm doing is kind of going in and almost like you're almost massaging the clay at this point. You're not pressing really hard, you're just trying to feather the clay. Like here, it's hard to see in this light, but it's actually pulling away from the sides. Now I gotta go back and put it back in towards the rear of the head. But you know, you can just go over, and you know, the reason I do this is because it's a large surface area that I'm using rather than using a fingertip or thumb. And you know, you're just going over, you're applying a little bit of pressure. You know, as you get better and so on, you'll be able to get an idea on how the clay reacts after a certain time, because the more you handle it, the warmer it gets, the softer it gets. And after a point, you know, it gets to a point where it's really a pain in the butt to work with, because it is so soft. Any little, you know, bits of pressure will do. Like right now, it's actually really soft. I don't have to do a lot to it to see little changes in the surface, and that, you know, little things like that, you're gonna have to go over and smooth again. Now you don't need a mirror finish base. You just need it so it's not like, you know, if I had just to give you a really extreme example, you know, if I had this kind of deal all over the head and I was trying to apply another layer, well, I have to go in between all these little things and fill in first, because I don't have a full layer. So that's where it gets time consuming. So if you do a nice full layer first, and then you apply more clay, and you're going to get an overall better surface finish. And yeah, like there's other than patience and it's really a touch and go thing. Like you can also I also do use this part of my hand. I'll support the back, and I'll grab the front, and I'll pull towards me. And basically you're actually covering like 3-4 inches at a time almost, and it's just so much faster than trying to use fingertips. And you just go over little spots, and it doesn't have, like I said, it doesn't have to be mirror smooth. Like you do see some sheen, but that's just because it's an oil-based clay. But you can go in and then just get the rough idea. And don't worry about too much of doing any heavy detail. Like even if you've done your whole build-up and you're trying to get as smooth as possible, get a rough idea for your mouth. If you've got nose holes, breathing holes, anything like that, that stuff you want references to. But anything else heavy detail, don't even worry about it until you're pretty happy with the surface, because all those little detail work makes trying to get it smooth a lot difficult, because you're trying to avoid all the work you've already done as far as the detail work. It's a pain in the ass. Like this one here, like the MacGyver 1, I didn't I had most of this smoothed out, and then I just dug in and then just did a little bit of finish work after that. But if this was all rough through here and I did all this work and I tried to go back over trying to smooth that out, it's a pain, because I can't use the heel of my hand to go in and smooth that out. I gotta use little sections at a time, and there's a good chance that I'm gonna crush some of this work here, which pretty much means I'm gonna have to pull it all out and do it again. So you want to have your surface pretty much done, like I'm talking like 90% done, before you even start doing any of the detail work, because it does make a big difference in the end as far as to how long it's going to take you, what the end result's going to look like, and so on and so forth. So you want a good base, nice good smooth base, because a smooth base will just mean that your subsequent layers over top are going to be that much easier to apply and to smooth out. Because if you start with a really rough base, like I said, your other layers of clay are just going to be filling in for other empty spots that are underneath them, and that's going to reflect on the layer you're working on right now. So you're still at the same starting point. So you're better off smooth, apply on, smooth out, apply on, smooth out. Now, once you've done a base and you know what your facial dimensions are, then you can just go ahead and put like a nice big fat generous piece of clay. Like if you know that your sides have to be like an inch or 3/4 of an inch or whatever dimensions it may be, go right ahead and put that on there. You know how thick the sides are the walls of your clay sculpt are supposed to be, and you just go ahead and put that all over. Now once your whole thing is covered, then you smooth out. But just make sure that you don't wear, if I put this on here just for goof, if I start smoothing out, you lose a lot of depth because you're trying to smooth out right away. So once you have a smooth layer, apply all your clay, smooth it out, double check your dimensions. If you have to add a 1/4 inch of clay, do what you need to. But you do want a good, strong, solid, smooth base first. So that's it for right now. Go with that.